Executive Committee member for the International Purchasing, Supply, Education and Research Association, IPSERA. He is also part of the Membership Council for Navy. It is a long Dutch name, and I think I might probably bite my tongue if I try and pronounce it very well. I'll ask Dr. Vos to speak a little bit more about it in his introductory remarks. Mm-hmm. He is also an associate editor of the Journal of Purchasing and Supply Management, JPSM. Currently, he's the chairperson of the Faculty Council for BMS at the University of Twente. He is also a public procurement consultant at PPRC. He is a co-founder of a serious game company called Suplay for procurement professionals. His areas of expertise include the following. Number one, supplier resource allocation, public and healthcare procurement, digitalization and industry 4.0. I know, Dr. Vos, I can go on and on, but because of the time, will you allow me to just stop here with these brief introductory remarks and hand over to you, sir?
Yeah, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, I have a lot of little roles in different organizations, but what I really like is actually to have some sort of balanced role between, on the one side, practice, that I also try to always bring in a bit of practice inside of here, and also try to do it on the other side, also the research area, which I also will bring in here. And that's also the point of this, or the idea behind this workshop or this little session we have here, is that I also tell you a little bit like, yeah, what did we actually learn the last years? Where are we right now? And I will focus on a few specific topics. I will not yet say to you soon, but first I would like to have some input from your side, actually. Maybe before I go to your input, very shortly, I'm here as a representative of the European Laboratory for Innovative Purchasing and Supply, ELIPS, and that is a new initiative at our university, which combines 20 researchers and all kinds of practitioners, regional but also internationally, to actually do research. And we do research in different areas like healthcare procurement, industrial procurement, public procurement, for which I also stand here right now, and also public works and project procurement. And our idea is actually to really enable individuals, but also organizations, to really develop purchasing, to professionalize purchasing. So that's very short about my main work at the University of Twente next to the other tasks I'm doing. And now I would like actually to interact with you a bit. So please, you can make a picture of the QR code, or you can log in at www.wooclap.com at Game Changers, GC 2022. GC22 is then the code to log in. So here I would like to have some sort of interactivity. So when you have a phone to your hand with internet connection, or because you're maybe on the laptop, just put in www.wooclap.com and activate this. Let's see. I don't know whether I have to check again. Is it open for you? Can you log in? I hope so. Yeah, should be able to log in. If not, please let me know. And this QR code should also work up here. So please feel free. And you can put in a name. You can put any name. You can keep it totally anonymous if you want to. Also a made up name if you want to. But please log in. Would be nice for some interaction. So wait a minute. So it's www.wooclap.com/GC22 is the link, or you should be able to take this QR code up there to get there. So to have a little bit more interaction, because I'm not sure who's all here or who's not here. Also because on Facebook, there's some people probably watching in a live stream. So that's why I want to allow all of you to actually join. Let me see if I can make it. Yep. Please go to this. We already see that we have 3 people signed in. It would be nice to have 1 or 2 people more. 5 now. Very nice. Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, the screen here is not updating. It's updating here on the side. And I'll put it in here, but we have already 6 people. You can also further log in if you want to, but let's go to actually, I would like first to know at which level do you actually work in government. So they have 4 options: central level, province level, or municipal level, or also other, when you, for example, working at university or wherever. You can still log in via www.wooclub.com/GC22. You can, so people that still want to participate can do that. Let me see. I can already show some results here. We see already quite some answers here. We see that of the people that are already logged in, that we have the majority being at municipality level. There are also some others, some work at the university. Let me see. You can also further answer. Are you working at central level, province level, municipal level, or other level? Then I know a little bit where I can focus my questions on. Yep, some more people are logging in. Let me see whether it's updating. Yep. Well, for now, I would say we just continue for now, but we see for now that there is a majority at the municipal level, but we also see, no, actually now it's growing. Now people have found it. So we find actually a little bit mixed. The provinces are still a little bit missing, so hopefully they will join us soon. Because I think there's something in it for everyone in this presentation. So as you can see here, we are a little bit growing. And then now I would like actually to ask a little bit an open question. Where do you see actually the biggest challenges, issues in procurement right now? So this is a word cloud I would like to ask. So just put in keywords, and I also know whether I, in this presentation, will talk about the right things, or maybe we should discuss later on some more things. So please fill in here, where do you see the possibilities? And I'm not sure, do you see the question actually? Because I'm not sure about, there's a strange thing here that there are no people indicated. I hope you can answer this. Right now I don't have any votes. Yeah, otherwise, maybe also for the people here in Zoom, write it in the chat. No, I see it. Great. Something is happening. I was already worried that it doesn't work. Very nice. So here we see it's growing, it's growing. So we see IT, sustainable procurement, to compliance with legislation, red tape, improved innovation at sea. That's a little bit tricky sometimes here. Let me see. I'm not sure whether when I make a, sorry for that. Like this, a word cloud, whether that maybe. I think we keep a list. The list is the best thing to do, because then we can also a little bit see what's going on here. And we see that actually technology, monitoring performance, innovation procurement, I see a lot of IT in here. Let me see whether I can also take some more red tape. And I think I will actually cover quite of these things today, especially the technology, IT, especially maturity of IT I will cover. I don't see right now COVID-19, so I will also go into that. So thank you very much for your input. I just want to see whether I'm going a little bit into the right direction, especially also the red tape is a very interesting one, which maybe might take a little bit more time than just this one presentation of me right now. But let's continue. Thank you very much for your input. I might ask for some more input later. So what I will actually talk today very shortly about, first I give you a little bit introduction into what is actually the Dutch context and what's European procurement also. Then I shall talk about some findings from the Netherlands about digitalization and e-procurement, because we did a maturity study that might be quite interesting also for all of you. Then I will go also into risk management. COVID-19 was a very big issue and revealed a lot of deficiencies, issues with procurement, where we actually did a very big, colleagues of mine did a very big international study on this. And then finally, I'll also bring in a African, or especially in this case, South African perspective, and we can also a little bit reflect on whether these issues are also the same for other countries and what we maybe can learn from it. If you have questions, please write them in the chat, raise your hand or something like that. So please, you can also interrupt me in certain moments, and we should also have in the end quite some time for discussions. This presentation is supposed to last for like 45 minutes to an hour. I guess more like an hour when we have more interaction, but just that you know also more or less how long it takes, and it's recorded, so you can always assess it later on. Good, let's go a little bit into Dutch context. Well, the Netherlands is a democracy. They also have a king, it's quite interesting, but they have more ceremonial role. There's also central purchasing actually, and every ministry is buying its own or has its own procurement function. Yet central purchasing is done, but really just for the central body. Most of the purchasing in the Netherlands or procurement in the Netherlands is actually done in the municipalities, so at a really decentral level. And here it's actually quite relevant to know that in the Netherlands there are like 12 provinces. And in these 12 provinces, we have in total 344 municipalities. It's quite interesting because every few years, municipalities decrease. For example, before March this year, we had 345 municipalities, and now we have 344. So there is actually an active trend in the Netherlands to merge municipalities, because you also see a little bit here the range. We have from 820,000 people municipalities, which is Amsterdam, down to 5,000 people municipalities. So really from very small to quite big. Yeah, and I see right now as a comment in the chat that says here municipalities and districts keep increasing every month. Well, there are reasons maybe for it, but in the Netherlands it's more and more that there's actually a lot of collaboration. You also see there are then also so-called water boards, which are also actually elected, that take care of water management and also infrastructure in the different provinces. And we see quite some collaboration actually, interestingly. Group purchasing organizations, it's also in this map here. There are, and it's quite interesting maybe for you to see, you can always click here in future when we share the slides and also go there, because there are different collaboration forms. There's a collaboration form for general procurement, where you would buy all kinds of different products and services. Then we have also social domain procurement, where you would a lot of the social care is bought in the Netherlands by the municipalities. So there's also a lot of collaboration. And we also have with garbage management, waste management, also collaboration. So when I would activate all three, all Netherlands would work together. But we see that in general, in the general procurement, we see that actually there is already quite some collaboration, but you also see not every municipality is here in a collaboration with other municipalities to buy together. And we have actually 35 different organizations that do that. It's actually also relevant soon when I come to the risk management COVID-19 case research we did, because it can be good to have a little bit decentralized decision-making, but during a big pandemic like we had, it can also lead to quite some coordination issues. Interestingly, actually, procurement is actively supported by, on the one side, the government, by a government institution that's called Piano. And it's like the expertise centrum or expertise centra for procurement, and it's under the Ministry of Economic Affairs. Procurement in the Netherlands is also managed by the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and not, as it's very often done, as I see in a lot of African countries, under the Ministry of Finance. And that has that also leads to very different mindset, culture, and implications actually in the end. Because usually when you see that the chief procurement officer is under the header of the finance ministry, then usually we have a much more focus on compliance, on following the rules, on also actually a lot of assessments of whether things are spent correctly. And we also see there is also some, Emmanuel from Uganda says, the procurement officer is a non-governmental institution with funding from UNICEF and other governments like the Dutch one. Interesting. I would really like to look deeper into that in future. So, and additionally, next to the government support, we also have Navy, which is the Association of Purchasing Professionals in the Netherlands with 6,500 members. And they actually really give actively trainings. And even when you apply for a public procurement job in the Netherlands, very often they will ask for a Navy diploma, like for a Navy 1, Navy 2, Navy 3 diploma, because they have been already so long around and are so professionalized in their trainings, the Purchasing Association, that actually it's nationwide accepted their diplomas, and they even ask for. So because it really shows that the people that have these diplomas really know something about procurement. So together, from a government side, but also from a more association side, and there is a coordinated effort actually to bring the capacity and the skills to a higher level. Yep, so that's a little bit about the Netherlands, and that is also pretty decentral, actually, with all these different purchases. The Netherlands is in a bigger context, and that is actually the European Union. And the European Union, there we have the EU Directive on Public Procurement. That means there are certain rules and processes you have to follow, that there are also different procedures that are allowed and that are not allowed. And usually when you are above a threshold of 140,000 for central governments and 250,000 for decentral governments, for goods and services, you have to follow officially the rules. That means, for example, you need to really prepare all your tender documents beforehand. You need to publish the tender, and you need to invite Europe-wide suppliers to submit their bids. For works, it is 5.3 million euros. Below that threshold, actually, it is the task of the procuring agency. So actually, even every municipality in the Netherlands, they have their own rules how they deal with purchasing. So often they have a rule that, for example, below 30,000 or 15,000 euros of spend for a certain product, you might just be able to just take any supplier you want. When it's between that, you need to at least have two suppliers and then kind of choose the best of them. And then when you have more than that, you would also need to, that's when you have like maybe 30, 50,000, it really depends on the municipality, you would actually also need to publish it. It's also quite interesting because, I will come to that actually later, to the procurement systems. But that is then kind of special that you have this European alignment. We all have the broad rules, but also each government itself can make these rules stricter. So you might actually see in some countries these rules more strict applied and some more loose applied. Or actually the rules are quite open in these cases. Interesting also, there is no oversight agency. We don't have how you say, an accountant general, like someone who checks the books and whether we do procurement correctly. That doesn't really happen. So we don't have an oversight that really take a look at all procurements and did we do it right and didn't we do it right. The way we actually work is via suppliers going to court. So we do the other way around, that we say when suppliers are not happy with certain decisions or how things are done, they can go to court, instead of having a government body that actually really checks compliance explicitly. Depends a little bit on the country in which you are, but at least in the Netherlands, there is, in this case, no oversight agency. Correct, and that's a little bit interesting, even though you might think, well, we're all the same in Europe, and don't we have all the same rules, and don't we do the same, and are we not already pretty developed? This is a little website, and I really recommend you to go there, is that it shows the public procurement performance of the different countries. And there are different criteria this website is taking, for example, whether there are a lot of single bid tenders, whether there are a lot of tenders that don't get any bids, and then also are all the bids really published? And all these kind of different aspects are taken into account. And when you go on the website, and I could speak about this for 1 or 2 hours, just about this. when you then go on the website, you can really see per country how they're doing. And they actually have the same problems, which are everywhere around the world. And also the same problems you have, that it's very often hard to get even bidders. To also work together might be hard, that it often takes very long trajectories. And we also see here, there are some countries that do it better, some countries that can improve a bit, and some countries that can improve a lot. So when you're interested, you can go deeper into this. I put a link in here so you can put on it. Then I see a question here. Can the set rules by government entities be in contrary with EU directives? No. You are not allowed. EU directive is higher than national law. So when there is a conflict, the EU directive prevails. So that is also, so you can always make it stricter, but you cannot make it more loose. So so you can take, because these rules are like a general set, and you can always say you have a different threshold value, for example, or you want, yeah, usually it's about threshold values and maybe some other smaller details, but the big lines have to be everywhere the same, in your opinion. Yep. The white color are usually the ones that are not in the European Union. So everyone who's not here as white is not in the European Union, or they don't have information on them. And I think these are all the European states as far as I see it right now. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, because there was a question about the white color here. Good. Yeah, I don't go so much into detail, but just that you know, there are also, we have not maybe everything always 100% in order. And there's still a lot of to do also for us in Europe. And now I would like to go, so after this short introduction to the Dutch and European context, that you a little bit know what is going on. Municipality is also very relevant. And that's also why that actually I would like to present number 2 now, about digitalization. In the Netherlands, we have actually a centralized tendering platform. And it began before 2005, around about, where it was also required, also by the European Union, that tenders have to be published. So everything you want to buy has to be published. And there is a tender portal was created at the central government level, which is also still at the central government level, in which all municipalities and all functions of government would publish their, or would have the ability to publish their tenders, let's say it like that. And a big focus was there at the beginning a lot on that you really have compliance, look at what is allowed, what is not allowed, what do we need to do, what do we need to publish. And then we had different phases actually in over the years, in different runs, that this procurement system was more and more professionalized. So every time, so like 4 or 5 year stints, we always would have this. And since 2011, and also it's ongoing, it's more and more now the focus that we got the basics right, actually, to really focus on the procurement process. How can that be supported? Can we also help more for value for money? Like that there are some automatic calculations based on which kind of weights you put on different criteria, that there might be also automatic calculations for the tenders that come back from the suppliers, that you also can get some market knowledge, because when you do it already for 10, 15, 20 years, such a system, you might be able to learn something from it. Which kind of documents work well, which kind of documents work less well, where are more suppliers actually submitting bids and where are less suppliers submitting bids. And also maybe even includes some market consultation there, that you say, hey, I want to make a market consultation about this product I'm buying. I want to have some input from suppliers. And can we maybe do it via the system? And this is all something that is being done right now. And quite interesting is that each or most municipalities have even their own system. They have their own procurement system with which they also publish and work. And that is then actually linked to the Dutch system. This is the Dutch system, the TenderNet, it's called, TenderNet system. And that is linked to actually a European system. So the European system is then whole Europe-wide, and these three are connected. So when you, as a public procurer in a municipality in the Netherlands, you publish a bid, it automatically would be transferred to the national level system, and this national level system would transfer it and often even translate it automatically to the European system, so that there is actually then also European impact on these things. This is actually quite interesting thing that these systems are connected like that. I also see right now there's a comment on earlier slide on the oversight board that there is that in the Republic of South Africa there is actually a public audit institution. That there it's very formalized, and you have actually really these audits. And that we now, and he also explains there that we also consider actually also Netherlands different rules for the or for in Netherlands we do it more individually, whereas in South Africa they do it more from that body. These processes are fixed. Let me see. One moment. I maybe reread your question wrong, to be honest. Let me see. Okay, now I see. Well, in the Netherlands, actually, we have the central government. Now I see, because in South Africa you have the central auditing institution that sets the processes and everything. In the Netherlands, we have the national law on public procurement, which says broadly the process we can take, whether do competitive bidding, innovation partnerships, negotiated procedures. So we have a list of different procurement procedures you can use, which also then specify how do they have to look like, when do you have to publish, whom you have to involve, which kind of interaction is possible with the supplier. That's written there. But still, at a more basic level in the Netherlands, the provinces and municipalities, they can decide even more on these rules. They have to follow officially the rules that are there, but when they can always make it stricter. So the lower you go in the government, you can always make these rules stricter, but you can never make them more loose. You can never make them say we are in contradiction now with what they do. And that especially also applies to the threshold values. And it's quite interesting that when you are actually below the threshold values, which I said earlier, the 215,000 for goods and services and the 5 million for the works, there actually you just have to apply general principles of competition, transparency, and fairness. And apart from that, you can make your own rules on how you want to actually achieve this. And in the end, when someone is not agreeing with how you are doing it, there's not a government institution that's checking it and say you didn't do it right, but there is the supplier actually would go to court and say, we didn't win here, this is not correct, it was not transparent, so we would like to have this decision repealed. So that is the way it works in Netherlands. I hope that answers your question. Then I also see a question, what Girish asked, what is and how, who and when do we get about market knowledge? Yeah, this is actually the market knowledge you get from the system itself, that you can get these things like what is bought. You can do a whole spend analysis actually, even from what is bought with public procurement and not, and who is buying what. You can even see maybe even overlaps. But this comes from, you would analyze here really the tenders that were out. Actually, you also see in the systems, procurement systems, in the end, you need as a procuring organization even say who won, and you also have to say the price at which they won. This data is not always very good, to be honest. So when there are, sometimes they also maybe don't fill in correctly, sometimes fill in zeros, and there's still a very big job to be done on the quality of the data, but the data exists like this and it can be analyzed. Any more questions on this?
I do not see any from my side, boss.
Okay, I see some more comments here. I see some also question about what about risk about cybercrime. Does Standard protect against this? Yes, it is actually, we have in Europe a very strict data management law, GDPR. And so we have another different law that really says how all these systems have to look like. And there's a very high, very high security level on this. There's a high own organization just working. So these are very own organizations just working on this whole procurement system. And they have very good in-eye security risks. So they're very, very strict on security. Yeah. So yeah, the TenderNet is actually really much protecting against cybercrime and against that people can get into systems and tamper with the systems. But of course, it is always, no matter which system you use, it is never 100% safe. That's something we have always just to know. But as far as I know, we didn't have large issues with TenderNet regarding privacy data risks in the last years. And so not that I remember. So it is still a very stable system. Yeah.
I think there's an earlier one from Walter there, Frederick.
Yeah.
That's above that one. Shifting from tendering to procurement.
Yeah. He asks, with the shift from tendering to procurement, with a focus on value for money and compliance, how do you deal with corruption emanating from the procurement process? Actually, it's quite interesting that that corruption is not so largely discussed when actually creating these systems. I wouldn't say no corruption takes place, but our system is more focused on actually creating efficiency than corruption, because there is not really open corruption, or there is not really open corruption in Europe a lot. So I have to actually check a bit how they take care of maybe that there is no corruption when we go more towards a procurement process. But the idea here is actually that we often have in bigger procurement processes already these European rules that make corruption so very difficult, because it needs to be published and all suppliers can look at it and all suppliers can actually go to court. So the system is actually supposed to create, because of the transparency of the different tenders we have, is create its own mechanisms against corruption, because we expect when suppliers don't win and they suddenly see there is a tender that could have fit very well, but the, for example, specifications are written in a way that just one supplier can win, they can actually go to court and say, this was not fair, we didn't have a fair chance to actually apply here. So it is not so much in corruption, is not so much prevented from that we check and like look at the hands of each purchasing professional and check, did you do your processes correctly? But it's more throughout the transparency idea that therefore we go against corruption. I hope that is a little bit, that's why I needed a moment to think about your question, because it's not an issue we directly think first of when we think of procurement in Europe. But it's a very relevant aspect, of course. Let me see. Is the whole tender process automated to end to end? I will come to that in the next slides. It's a question. Let me see. What are the reservation schemes and promotions of local content covers in the Netherlands? We are not allowed to have local content covers. We are not allowed to say it has to come from, for example, the municipality of Enschede. You're not allowed to say this. You are not allowed to discriminate. You are allowed to say things like, when, for example, traffic light breaks, it needs to be repaired within 2 or 3 hours. You're allowed to say that, but you're not allowed to say it needs to be local content from the Netherlands or from Germany or from wherever. So you're not allowed to discriminate. Yeah, I hope this answers a little bit your question. Then then another one is a view value for money as a fundamental control measure, achieving the desired outcome. So how do you ensure that is achieved those outcomes from the start of the process to the end in terms of providing expected outcomes? And that is a very interesting question here. It's related to how do we ensure throughout the whole process that value for money is created. And that is actually still a challenge. We put a lot of value for money also into procedures we create. An example I wanted to maybe say when we have time later is, for example, tender boards that, for example, for bigger projects, we would set together a group of multifunctional, also multi-perspective stakeholders that would take a look at a certain tender and the specifications of the tender and actually discuss about, hey, how can we increase value for money and how can we make it better? But a big issue, and that's why I come now also on, is also actually still contract management. How do we make sure after the contracts have been signed that we actually get what we want from it? And that's maybe I leave it for a moment there. I hope that's okay, because we have to continue now. Otherwise, I cannot cover all the topics I want to cover. But very interesting discussions. Thank you. So I'll ask further questions soon. And so what we actually had then was that we were actually very interested to relate to the level of e-processes we have. We didn't know what the processes are. We didn't know what the capabilities are. So we did like in 2019, 2020, we're interested in this. And we wanted to actually analyze in the Netherlands, how does it look like with purchasing systems? How far are we in these purchasing systems? And here we look specifically on purchase to pay systems and on contract management. And we want to say, how far are Dutch municipalities developed in these two areas? And now no assessment existed. And you can also use this assessment yourself. So what we did actually, we created a whole detailed overview or maturity model, you call it, where we would take a look at first some general aspects. How are they looking like? I zoom in on this very soon. Then we would take a look at orders. So ordering management, P2P. And we would also take a look at contract management. How's that going? And then we would always take a look, are they in a very ad hoc? Are they in the basic level, standardized level, or integrated level? And it's quite interesting, just as a few examples. For example, in the general perspective, we ask the municipalities, hey, how are you with policy? Do you have a purchasing policy in your municipality? Is it really, does everyone know about it or not? And is it also always updated, etc.? So when you would always update it, etc., it would be on the very highest level. But when you have it just described at a simple level, then it would be like a talk. Then we also, for example, would ask, are you also actually really discussing about whether something should be in and outsourced, and also how, then also maybe about the specification and the contract. Is this discussed? Or is also discussed that the selection of suppliers? Is there also some sort of consideration point in the process in which you really explicitly consider these things? That's in the general aspect. And in the orders, we ask about organization ownership. Do we have for the purchase to pay process, do we have organized it already very clearly? Then do we also have systems? That goes a little bit into the question of, are there actually even procurement systems available? Then also we ask a little bit about supplier involvement and relationship building with suppliers. Are there also some systems and processes? And finally, also for P2P, is there also some sort of performance measurement? And is it done a little bit maybe, very sparely, or is it done really in an integrated way? And then finally, the last area, we also ask about contract management. We ask, do you have even a process for contract management? Do you have systems for contract management? Do you also have employees in collaboration? Here it means also a lot that there are responsibilities, that people, that you know you're not responsible for contract management and you have to do it now, and that you also do it actually. And then also in the end, supply performance, is that also taken care of? Do we somehow in the long run also assess these things? So we assessed all of these things. And so shortly what we did then, we put it all in the questionnaire, these different levels. We also asked, very interestingly, the current maturity level, the maturity in 3 years and beyond that, so for the next 5 to 10 years, where they would like to be in these different areas. And so we asked then at Dutch municipalities, we got in total 65 responses, which are pretty, actually pretty representative. As also a lot of municipalities work together on these processes. So, and we also analyzed, and these 65 were a very good representation of the general 340 municipalities we have. And then we also analyzed a little bit the different maturity levels and took also median levels of maturity. And this is a little bit what we found. I hope you can see it. I hope it's sharp enough. First, this is a general overview of what are their current ambition, or where are they currently with maturity? Where do they want to be in 3 years, and where do they want to be in future? And it's already quite interesting, because this was like in 2020, we published this. And now we're almost 3 years later, like next year will be 3 years later. And I really wonder, to be honest, whether we really are now at an average of something 2.5 maturity level. But we see at the current level, we are more around about 1.5 to 2 maturity level. So when you go through all of this in the median, we would have this. And additionally, it's also quite interesting to see that actually also when we really look in the far future here, that also not all municipalities say they want to be in the very, very highest level. And a lot of say I would be a little bit lower, and also a few actually understand that maybe there is a certain degree of maturity that can be reached that is really beneficial, but at a certain point, certain maturity might not lead the same benefit and might need a lot of effort, especially for very small municipalities. And now before I then go a little bit more into how the three levels, the general, the orders, and also contract management are different, I would like to ask you a question, and please give your answer here. I hope you can see it now. So please also for all the others, log in wooclap.com at GC 2022, and then you can be. And I would like to ask you, where do you think they were the weakest? Where is most improvement possible? Was it in the general area? Was it in the order management or the contract management? So please give us your. I would see where do you think the Dutch municipalities can improve the most? Was it the general, the policy level? Was it the order management, or was it contracting? I see already two answered. It's not really. No, it's doing something. So I already have two answers. Please answer a little more. Like, I have to see who is first. If you're right, then you have the honor of being correct. So where do you think they had the most issue? Was it in the general area, where they have policy and decision making? Was it in P2P, purchase to pay processes, or was it the contract management? Yeah, so wait one more minute, or like a few more seconds. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. For people that didn't write here, you can also write in the chat what you think it was. So feel free to do that as well. Let's see whether I can actually activate now this here. Let's see whether you can see. You can see now where the answers have been. So we see some. One person says it is general policy, and 4 people say it is contract management. And actually, the 4 people, and that's actually quite interesting. It's 5 people also even now show the correct answer. It is indeed contract management, and that is actually no matter where you look around the world, it is more or less always contract management. It's quite interesting. So then to show you a little bit now really the results of it, this was really the current maturity level we measured. And we see when we see the all responses is that when we are in the general area, the blue one, here we are already a little bit higher, where we even reach like 3.5 level, even at some municipalities. Then when we go to ordering, that already is a little bit lower with a maturity at a level of 1.5. And then also contract management is actually the lowest. Another way to present it, it's the same data, but this is another way to present it actually. And this shows a little bit some interesting things. Here's the overall maturity of all municipalities. And we see that all maturity or the whole maturity is between 1.5 to 2 maturity level. So it is already okay, there's already something done, but it can still be done more. And then when we go further, when we see the average maturity level, what is the difference? We see that actually the general here is actually higher. So it's higher than this red line, this is the general maturity level. In general, the policy and decision-making are higher. They're also pretty much actually the same. So here we can say, okay, that's already pretty okay. It's like a 2.5, something like that. They're doing pretty good on that they have a policy, that they also consider a lot of different things. Then we go to ordering. And in ordering, we see that the ownership is a little bit higher. System monitoring, actually, they have already quite some systems, which is quite good. But when it also comes to supplier involvement in performance measurement, that's also the question that came earlier, like how do you do performance measurement, that even there, the municipalities are can still improve. And the weakest actually, see at the bottom, contract management, we see it's a bit different or a little bit smaller than for the general and then a general maturity. And we see that, yeah, well, processes exist, systems are a little bit in place, but especially this organization-employee collaboration is missing. That is quite an interesting thing, because we would say systems are the most difficult thing to see, but also this kind of who has the responsibility of it and who doesn't actually is really for contract management. So this is a little bit also then a finding we had here was that we really said, okay, also in the Netherlands, we can improve quite a lot. So if you're interested in this, I think I put it also earlier, I think I did it later. This is actually also a published work of a student of mine. I have to see, I didn't put the link in here. Sorry for switching now, but I normally put a link also in there that you can read more into detail into this. You can always contact me and I can also share this with you. And you can use this thing yourself. So you can use this model yourself to just assess yourself. Where are we here? Are we even at the ad hoc level? That was also the discussion we had. Where should we start? Because we start already with something, but sometimes you have even nothing. So you actually at maturity 0. Because this is maturity 1, 2, 3, 4. The source of this model actually, yeah, I will put it later. So before I will put it beforehand here, it's actually a master student of us worked on it, and she also worked at the consultancy, and then together with them we worked on this model. Of course, you can. This is not a whole purchasing or procurement model, because it would be much bigger, where you would also even take many more things. This really was a model focused on P2P and contract management. But please feel free to have the slides, and I will add later the source of this also here, that you can read more in detail, which questions are there, how were they answered, etc. Yep. Hope that helps you. But also already this should give you a little bit an idea where you could be with certain systems and processes. And to really look into the future, because I really would like to also tell you something about the future, is another research we did. Was actually, we went in the procurement process. Here, there's a procurement process. And we asked experts from really like e-procurement experts, but also people in municipalities. And we asked them where in which different steps, like strategy formation, specification, selection, contracting, ordering, and also expediting. And in the end, evaluation, where can we have even few like kind of industry 4.0, digitalization? So it was very future looking, so that you know what is even possible in the different steps. This gives a little bit of an overview. Here, actually, I put the source. It's Alicia Wenning did this work. And here you can also find the link to her master thesis. And here we really analyzed, we found, for example, that we think, for example, strategy might be able to have artificial intelligence or business intelligence, or also robotic process automation. I could go again hours over this. I can really tell you all these different possibilities there are. What's maybe quite interesting is we also put it into this graphic. It's the same thing almost again, just differently done. We asked these experts actually, what is the impact of the different technologies that might be possible in public procurement? And what would be the effort to implement it? So would it be very helpful to have it? And would it also be like a lot of effort or not? And then we thought, and then we can make these 4 quadrants where we say they have these solutions that we think is relatively low effort. It's still an effort, but relatively low, and it has a high impact. These are like the quick wins. Then we would have also something that has a high impact, but is very difficult to implement. Then we also have the ones that are easy to do, but the question is, yeah, do they bring a lot? And then also the blockchain. And here we see that API, that means more systems connecting with each other. That is seen as a very quick win, because we have already a lot of systems very often, but they're often not connected. And often maybe the data quality is not that good. And so when you can work on this, how can we connect data? How can we get from different systems, different information together? We might win already a lot. And also cloud is a very relevant issue, or very seen as very positively, that we also work more in the cloud, share more with each other. Of course, then the question of security comes in again, of course. It's a very own topic. Then also general e-tendering software, really like getting that right. OCR is optic content recognition, so that you have that, and that's maybe also relevant for quite some municipalities, how to digitalize documents. because a lot of things because maybe some suppliers might not have even anyhow possibility to use computers or to go into a system we might provide them or whatsoever. Can we also find ways how maybe they can still submit maybe their documents in paper and we automatically let them be scanned in? This is OCR, for example, where we might also have possibilities. And then we have robotic process automation that goes also towards also connecting systems again. I can explain much more on this. Internet of Things, AI, and blockchain. Blockchain is seen as totally not, it's very difficult to implement and might not lead to any benefit. But as I said, this is a little bit an overview that we actually took a look, and these might be future things we might want to take a look into. But basic thing, a general digital infrastructure is always needed for any of those. And that's also, I think, in future the biggest challenge. The question was the source of this model is this source here. There was our project, which our student was leading, where she asked all these experts in all these municipalities. And then there's a question, why not rearrange the x-axis with low and high? Well, because it's about effort, and less effort is better and more effort is worse. Of course, we should have made, usually we call this ease of implementation, and then we would switch the two. But she chose for certain reasons to call it effort in this case. Just that you, I hope this gives you some insight. It's also a bit future looking. And with this, actually, I conclude a little bit the section on e-tendering. So that's a little bit a view from the Netherlands, where we are right now, etc. Yeah. I think we can talk days about this. I hope this gives you a little bit of insight. And I would like now to continue with learning from COVID-19. I hope that's, otherwise later on we can discuss more about digitalization. Well, here's quite interesting. We were all hit, all of us were very hard hit by COVID-19. Society, procurement tried to do whatever they can. And here actually two of my colleagues, Esme Peters and Professor Dr. Louise Knight, they we're working on a very big project that involved a lot of different stakeholders internationally, nationally and internationally, to actually find out what can we learn from what happened during COVID, how can we prepare for the future. And here we worked on a lot together, as you see, with the different stakeholders. Of course, University of Twente was there again. The Public Procurement Research Center, where Esme works for, was also included. ZonMW was actually is a Dutch government fund that supports research, and then also Erasmus University was involved, and the International Research Study on Public Procurement. This is a group of purchasing academics, but also practitioners that want to bring purchasing further in practice. And what they did actually was they had a lot of different interviews, like here you see 58 interviews, 60 interviews, 45 interviews, 22 interviews, a lot of countries, say 23 interviews, 23 countries, 33 countries, etc., with different focus areas. So first was really like what immediately did you do with COVID, and then also understanding the Dutch context, because we were also funded by a Dutch government institution. Then we also looked a little bit into future of healthcare in general, because this was also very much in the healthcare domain. And then we also looked into what can we do in general for future crises, not only in the healthcare, but also in public procurement. And here we can also, my colleague could give again an own presentation, 2 hours, 3 hours. I just take the key things which were quite interesting. And we look on the one hand on what were immediate steps that were taken, really in an operation level, kind of, and what are kind of long-term things, which are also relevant for the people in here that are more at the higher government levels, that coordinate more. So we start with the more active ones, but maybe I skip this now because otherwise it takes too much time. Let's start here. When totally 6 main measures were taken, but they were split up into 3 groups. And the group was the supply side. What did, broadly speaking, purchasers do on the supply side? Then what did they do on the capability side? So how did they work on the capabilities? And finally, also, how do they use coordination measures? As you see here, it was much more detailed. You had different questions and different answers to these different areas. And on the very broadly speaking, on the supply side, one of the biggest things they did was increasing resilience to stockpiles. So they would try to buy a lot, buy more than they need to just put it in a somewhere in a stock and be able to do that. And I think you also did that quite a lot, probably when you were affected by this. Another thing was often that you would also try maybe to decrease supply, decrease demand actually by, for example, finding innovative ways to solve the same issue. What we had a lot was, for example, when we needed the hand sanitizers, that suddenly producers of alcoholic drinks would actually join, and they would actually create high percentage alcohol-based solutions that actually can also be used to disinfect and other ways. So that we would find other ways to actually be able to split the demand higher up. But it would also be that we also would create a domestic production capacity with these alcohol suppliers, with face masks. Lost face masks were suddenly made by companies that never did made face masks before. Then we also had capacity measures. Actually, there was a big, in the Netherlands, they centralized during the pandemic when they figured out, okay, all the different municipalities, all the different healthcare institutions is trying to do their own thing. It doesn't lead to anything. We have to elevate it to a higher level. They created actually a national task force that would actually coordinate all kinds of purchasing or procurement activities during the pandemic. And they also created an integrated system to really find out where are demands, where are stockpiles, and to also increase traceability. Then also there was also quite some discussion among procurers, which also led that they could share a lot of their strategies. They were talking a lot with each other, a lot of networking. It also increased in their competencies. And in the end, there were also coordination measures. In the Netherlands, because there were all these kind of different purchasing corporations, GPOs, they were all then centralized, as I said. There was a very big issue, big coordination that was done during the pandemic. And additionally, they also created the government itself created protocols on like really also long-term protocols. What happens if a certain infection rate goes up? What has also priority? So they also would choose, okay, which kind of industries, which kind of sectors, which kind of institutions have priority for getting certain products or not. And this actually led to a big decrease of uncertainty, because uncertainty is very often a big issue in here. Yeah. And maybe then additionally, this was in another study. This was where I was also involved very directly, where we also took a little bit in where we really took a purchaser perspective of really purchases in hospitals, really specifically hospital purchasers. And here we took a look at, hey, what did they do internally in their hospitals? And also internally, also what do they do themselves? But also what happened a little bit towards external relationships. And here we saw the main finding actually here was that during a moment of crisis, even though there are benefits to decentralization, actually centralization should be done. And that actually in, for example, in hospitals that suddenly, there were not in itself not enough products, there were enough face masks in the whole hospital, but because one department was stockpiling and the other department didn't get anything of that, there was suddenly a shortage. And then purchasing would be a gatekeeper here. And with these external relationships with suppliers, with the markets, it suddenly asked for much higher prices and also competition actually between different hospitals as well. The government needed to step up as a gatekeeper. So this was actually the main finding here. And maybe you can also in future see some of this. Here's also the link to that study. So for you, in case you have a crisis in future, you can also go a little bit into this. And just very shortly to go a little bit broader, they also said for long-term resilience, we also need to, this was short-term resilience, what we can do ad hoc, but for long-term resilience, we can also do a lot. We can do something about the supply side, the governance, regulatory laws, then skills and competences and information systems. And yeah, it's all recorded, so that's why I go now a little bit faster through it, but don't hesitate to ask questions. And the idea here behind this was actually to create long-term resilience. We need to have AMC. And that's a framework that says we need to have awareness, motivation, and capability. That means to be resilient, we need, as first one, the awareness that a crisis is happening. that we have to act. Then we need also the motivation to act. We need to really say, okay, we need to be aware enough that it's a severe enough issue that we are motivated. And then finally, we also need the capability that when we are aware that there is a situation, we're motivated to do something about it, also work on the situation. And that's then a little bit what I took from their report, and you can take a much more detailed look in future. But they would actually really say for each of these different areas I explained earlier, what can we, for example, do? For example, then from the regulatory side, there's then the higher up government, let's say like that, really the central government, that there's also the question of, do we need to kind of streamline certain emergency regulations? Is there something that there should be a certain like emergency law that can be automatically used and it applies to all different functions in the government, for example, and all kinds of different things. So yeah, I leave it up to you to read it more in detail. But in general, there are a lot of things that can be done to also be prepared for future pandemic. And a lot of this is about coordination. That we need to coordinate more. It doesn't mean we need to centralize everything. I say that very clearly. It does not mean, I'm not saying here we should centralize everything, because there are often also benefits to decentralization. But I say that at least we should talk with each other. So even when we're decentralized, that we talk with each other, we coordinate with each other, that we actually share knowledge with each other. I hope I'm a little bit now over time, but yeah, I try to go now to the last, because there we also take actually a South African perspective. Very shortly, here are also all the links to the different documents. So in case you're interested, go here. I also wish in future to maybe give some more presentations on this, that I can go more detailed into these results. But these are findings from Netherlands and internationally that might be quite interesting. So with this, I would now go to the last part of this, because actually we have quite some insights actually already what is happening. And this was a project we did in 2019, 2020, where we spoke to chief procurement officers in municipalities or chief supply chain officers in municipalities in South Africa. And not only to them, but also to people from provinces and even from the central government, from Treasury. And we all were sitting together and we were thinking of, hey, how can we improve South African procurement? So we had a whole workshop where people could say what they find relevant, what they find important. And actually, what we did then, for example, is that we would sit together with all these very smart people. We would come up, we would talk about different issues, for example, policy and strategy here, and about professional capabilities. And we would actually always talk about what do we have to start doing to make procurement in South Africa better, what should we stop doing in South Africa, and what should we continue to do, what is already good, where we want to work further on. And so you see a lot of different things we did. This was a little workshop, and unfortunately I didn't have time enough here, but it would be nice one day maybe to do even such a workshop from the African Institute for Supply Chain Research, that maybe we can do something again, and not only for South Africa, but for a broader African perspective, and see where can we improve. What came out of here is actually this figure, and it was distributed among supply chain policy and strategy, then professionalization and capabilities, e-procurement, sustainability. Because we had different people here, we also actually wanted to see whether there are different perspectives at the municipal level, provincial level, or at the national level on certain emphases or not. And we see very nicely there are a lot of similarities between where they actually see points that can be maybe improved. And to just go on the main ones, was quite interesting that also what I discussed here today, the e-procurement maturity, also how to align these e-processes with legislation, that is still a very big issue, or was, in my opinion, is a very big issue. Contract management, what we also saw where Netherlands are until now the weakest in the maturity, is a big issue. Also sustainability, how do we work with sustainability? How do we put it in legislation? How do we also allow for innovative solutions but prevent corruption, because that is a very big issue. Like we want to make it flexible for the procurement professional to be very innovative, sustainable solutions, but that also opens the door, unfortunately, that people that don't want to use the system for the benefit of the citizens, but just for the benefits of them, that they can actually do something that allows corruption. And also a lot of professionalization, mindset changes. And I think this is also something we see very often coming back. And I'm also very interested in whether maybe even the order has changed now and how we have improvements. And just to give also some really practical things, what came out of this, because out of this, we identified what are the biggest things where we would like to improve. And then we made a learning journey. We went to the Netherlands and Germany, and we visited a lot of different government institutions and municipalities and all kinds of organizations that helped us to get more insights into this. And then in 2020, we met again, and we came actually up with really specific projects we want to do. And just for the people that that you might get inspired a bit, which kind of projects came out, was that we came actually up with these different projects, and I would like to show it to you. I actually have to follow up with these people whether this is actually now implemented. For example, one was that there should be at the district level, also higher government level, there should be also some sort of policy. So some people said, let's try and create some sort of policy on CSR. Then also social responsibility or social return on investment. That's the idea that also in your tenders, you can write things as, I would like to have this supplier to get unemployed from the region, to take unemployed people from the region and get them into work. You're allowed to do, for example, that in the Netherlands as well. That you say something, we want social return on investment. So how can a supplier that supplies us certain products or services actually improve the community in which they are delivering these services? So that was a very nice thing. Then also generally professionalizing of SCM to also take a look into, hey, which kind of trainings do we need work? Do we need some sort of even maybe courses? Also universities can work very nice with this. Interestingly, also procurement as a career, like to take a look into, can we maybe even make something like a certificate as a public procurer, and this kind of stuff. It's a very interesting idea. And then two were also related to really e-procurement. One was that on a broader level, there will be an e-procurement system, and also with a focus on, hey, how can we allow for more interaction? How can we allow for all of that? But also really at the municipality. So there was also a little, it was also the idea of the municipalities itself can also do something. And what I often see actually also in the Netherlands is when you need some sort of lighthouse. You need one municipality or two municipalities to actually do something like this, to just implement, to just do it. And when it works out and it's nice, and other municipalities will look at it and will say, wow, we want to do the same. How did you do it? And then automatically there is some sort of elevation, because you see it can be done and we want to do it. And this was also then the plan here. And there is also a very nice, also set by Osias, who also puts right now in the chat a very nice link also to UNISA. They are also right now very busy in this area. So and I think that's also something to also be very enthusiastic about, that there's still, of course, there's still a lot to be done, but a lot is already being done. And I think we have a lot of potential to really improve procurement. And with this, actually, this is the end of it, of my presentation. So thank you for being a little bit more here than an hour with me. Just to recap a bit, I shortly explained to you a little bit Dutch and European context. Then we went into digitalization, the maturity of e-procurement, talked a bit about the tender net, so the big system, but also really at municipalities, what are their ambitions and where they are good and not. Then we also went into risk management, about what do we learn from COVID. Coordination is very, very relevant among different stakeholders when we are facing such a big challenge. And then finally also took a South African perspective here, and it gave you some insights. I can also go a little bit further on some more practical issues, or when you have any questions, please let me know. But with this, actually, I would like to thank you all for being here. Also, I would thank AISCR for inviting me here to be able to give this presentation to you. So thank you very much for this. And when you want to contact me, here are my contact details. Please feel free to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vos. I hope I'm audible on your side.
Pardon?
Am I audible on your side?
Well, I'm what? Is it, pardon me? Are there any questions?
No, am I audible because I'm now under load shedding?
Ah, it's load shedding happening.
Yeah. It's now happening on my side, but you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the open session. If you have got any follow-up questions, please raise your hand, or alternatively still type them on the chat. We'll relay them to Dr. Vos. From my side, it has been a very interesting perspective on the differences between ourselves in Africa and yourselves in Netherlands. I think from your last part of the presentation, you have realized that Africa is a highly regulated space, and more often we're driven from a compliance perspective. You did allude to that when you compared the location of supply chain. In your case, it's economic affairs. In our case, it's usually finance ministries. And therefore, most of the heavy load for us practitioners is really the effort that we put in to be seen to be compliant, such that when the audit comes through, the level of decision-making appears responsible, does show a sense of commitment for value for money. But unfortunately, most of the times our systems let us down because more often they're open to interference. I appreciated the issue on the digitalization part, on the technology part, and I'm optimistic that as we improve our technologies, as we improve our systems, hopefully we will have a mind shift away from focusing on corruption towards focusing on the efficiencies that you were alluding to.
Yeah, it's always an interesting topic because I still remember when we were with our South African group, and we always had great discussions. So I always like it. Always liked to have these discussions. But then actually also a lot of my colleagues were stumbled when suddenly the question came, but how do you deal with corruption? And they were like, what? First they were like, did I hear it correctly?
Those young people are just
because I said, with us it's less open, even though it still exists. It's not open as some,
wise person to be stupid.
As in some Africa. I totally understand this. I think you have to mute Mr. Alma. Ciao.
Yes, thank you. Amos, can you mute yourself? I'm trying to mute him unsuccessfully.
Yeah, please. Also, any questions you might have. I can also tell some interesting things which also quite have inspired. The social return of investment was quite interesting. Maybe you heard that. To actually really, I don't know whether you actually do it. Is it happening in South Africa that you do also some sort of social return on investment, that you tell suppliers that they have to include some disadvantaged communities, I think might happen, but also like unemployed people, etc. This is a thing that is often.
Yes. For us, it's now one of the key critical indicators of uplifting communities, opening access towards some form of economic activities from emerging suppliers and previously disadvantaged communities. So we like to ring-fence certain procurement spend towards a localized perspective, and sustainability is being very, very key there. I think you saw from one of the questions from one of the participants, really trying to see how do you do it efficiently from the Netherlands perspective. I do see though that my co-host is now online. Can I extend an invitation to Dr. Data to come on and probably just give us a reflection on the presentation?
Yeah, if you want to do a reflection or something.
Dr. Data, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Yes. Hello.
Hi, Mr. Ncube. You are actually putting me on the spot because I stepped in a little bit late. That's why you are hosting, Mr. Ncube. But I must say that the tail end that I heard, particularly on aspects of the contract management and the challenges that you are facing, it actually made me feel a little bit better in terms of the challenges that we are facing from our perspective. And when I say better, that I say that yes, we are behind, but we are not that far behind, because everyone, as you said, in the way you've researched, has those challenges. An interesting part for me was you spoke about transparency being sort of your deterrent, where you said that you are happy to tell the suppliers that, well, if you see anything or find anything, you're happy to utilize the courts. I think for us that's great. It's a very difficult ask because our courts are not necessarily as available as they would be. So I'm wondering if there were any other mechanisms that you might have in your research, bar court, that can then improve transparency so that we can then achieve the type of results that we're looking for.
Yeah, a lot goes via professionalization. Like that's really the key, because in Netherlands, because we have the active involvement of this government institution, of course, but also the professional purchasing association that is already since 20 years giving trainings. Like a lot of building was there, that actually we have a very good, you can say, network of resources, of trainings, all this kind of stuff, that really also brings the next step to value, is actually really educating both on hard and also soft skills your purchasers and your procurement professionals. It's usually the other way, to not just have systems in place and always via the more hard side, the more legal side, and the more compliance side, but actually really to because also with professionalization, also a mindset change comes. So the more mature you are, the more capabilities you have, and the better they are trained, actually, the more they also see the seriousness of what they do, the better they know what they can do. And in the end, they can also deliver better value for money. It's not an easy, what I say now, it's absolutely not an easy thing to do. And it's maybe also, sounds a little bit broad, but that's also what we see in research a lot. Right? Because I was also just at a healthcare conference, healthcare procurement conference, and there we also saw that that there's actually some sort of there was also someone of the European Innovation Council, and they actually analyzed that also a bit, and they say the more we see in the maturity, like really in the professionalism of procurement, but among the European countries, the more we see that they are mature, the more they will also buy more innovativeness, use more innovative procedures we have at our disposal. And yeah, the question is a little bit, of course, causality, is it really causal? But we see that with higher capabilities, more knowledge, more also sharing information, community building. What I think we also do with this event, actually, is that we try to create some sort of community, best practices community, and that we actually try to share what do we know. And that actually also leads already to much more. To much better results. I hope this is something of an answer for you, even though it's a bit broad, maybe.
No, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Nteta, for rigging yourself out of the bus. Dr. Vos, Charles has put a question for you there on the comment.
Yeah, I'm actually now venturing a little bit into healthcare procurement, because that healthcare procurement is in Europe some sort of often a subset of public procurement. And it is even more, or I would say even less fluid, let's say it like that. Usually, because in the past I did industrial procurement, I still do it a bit, that is, you can make very own decisions there. Public procurement already gets much harder because you have all these rules and regulations you have to follow and transparency, and you don't want to comply, of course. But when you go into healthcare procurement, it's even the next level of compliance, because there you even have more. It's a very sensitive area. You have very strong doctors and patients, of course, which also makes sense, but also make it harder for you as a purchasing professional to work in. And that's also why I showed you a little bit which kind of techniques they do also here in this area, because maybe we can also learn from them how they can still be creative in this very challenging environment. Also because it's often not seen yet as strategic procurement. Whereas in public procurement in Europe, most of the time it's seen as strategic and in making a benefit. Actually, in the newest, we speak in Europe now about Industry 5.0. And that is something that's now developed in the next 5 to 10 years. And that is the idea of actually creating markets, and also even the private sector, that is bringing benefit to society. And public procurement is very explicitly written in there. There was not for a long time, but now it is, as a main way how to achieve prosperity and how to have competitive markets, how to bring better value for money to citizens. And that actually, and that is actually also something maybe still sometimes difficult to achieve, to really achieve this kind of also strategic vision of also the lawmakers and the decision makers, to really give also the freedom and the room and the possibility actually for the procurement professionals, who are very often very smart, very professional, that they can be innovative and they can do the best. Yeah, but I started at healthcare procurement, but that is, so that was even a bigger issue of the strategic vision and what do we do, and especially dealing with markets more actively. There's a lot of there are a lot of monopolies in healthcare, and we have to work together as purchasers to somehow be able to, because 70% of all healthcare procurement goes via 30 companies, and we have thousands, hundreds of thousands of hospitals that all buy separately. And we really need to coordinate this. And the same is actually true for public procurement. We often have very big contractors, very big companies, and we need to work more together to be able to actually be able to kind of compete with these kind of very dysfunctional supply markets. Yeah, I know it's a little bit longer thing, but that's also why I find this also very interesting, because they have even more this issue of how can we create competition and how can we bring in innovations, even though we have these very strict rules. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. In the audience, Dr. Vos, I've got quite a number of our senior supply chain practitioners, executives, and academics throughout the continent, and I think I would love for them to probably come on board and just reflect on what has been presented today. Let me invite the first one, Simon Anand. Are you able to just to come in and just reflect on the presentation?
You really like to put people on the spot here.
No, I just wanted to also have a look and feel of the broadness of Africa and our experiences. Simon is based in Ghana, so he will also definitely give us a Ghanaian perspective. Simon?
Nice. Because I have to say, I have the most insight from South Africa, but I'm really interested in also how it's in other, because I know they're very different. Well, there's similarities, but also many differences. So in case there are also people from outside South Africa, it would be also quite interesting to hear what you think you can take away, or where you say, okay, this is so much future. You can also say you found it interesting what you present there, but it is like something in 20 years. That's also something you can.
I'm not so sure Simon is still muted. Probably while Simon is still muted, Walter, would you like just to reflect on the results that Dr. Vos presented vis-a-vis some of the work that you and the team are doing this side? Any alignments, misalignments? I know, my friend, I'm putting you under the bus, but we'd just love to hear a few perspectives. Walter?
No, not that they have all load shedding or they're simultaneously in another meeting. It's possible. Also feel free to still type anything in the chat in case you have any points, anything you want to say.
Sorry, Mr. Nube, and good afternoon, colleagues. Dr. Vos, I'm pleased to meet you again after such a long time.
Yeah.
We really appreciate the comprehensiveness of your presentation. I think we relate to some of the things that you have presented, and we really want to take stock of some of the things that you said to us. And I'm speaking obviously in context of South Africa, that some of the things we relate. I think contract management has been a pain point for us, and we have tried, all of us in the SCM space, to try to reinforce the contract management framework, which we have not really seen the results, but we're still waiting. And there's a process of the public procurement bill that has been long overdue, that we thought its enactment would bring some development within our public procurement space. But you raised one critical point where you indicated one of the reasons why you're putting public procurement not within the finance department or treasury department, because it will more focus on compliance. And this is the case. And I think your evidence is so empirical, because it speaks to our realities, that because the public procurement is placed within the finance or treasury department, its focus is not to create value for money. It's really more for compliance and ensuring that when the audit comes, you are audit ready. And it's more of your finance responsibilities that we're taking care of. And we have been pushing very hard to professionalize the supply chain management discipline, and trying to remove it from finance, because we see the value that it will create if it were to be removed. And with your presentation, we really want to acknowledge you and really appreciate the time that you've spent with us. I think this goes to everyone. Thanks, Mr. Nube.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Walter. I know I threw you under the bus there, but I thought your experiences and your worldview could actually enrich our discussions and also provide a perspective for Dr. Vos on our South African experiences. I would like to open this part to any of our members who resides outside South Africa, just to reflect on the presentation and also compare and contrast with their own lived experiences in their country. Anyone, ladies and gentlemen? I had invited Simon earlier on. He's still muted, so I don't know whether he can hear me. Dr. Vos, it looks like your presentation was actually comprehensive enough. I'm not seeing any further comments. I don't know, unless if I can invite your.
I can just also give a little bit like a little also call, like in case you find anything very interesting here. And as I said, a lot of topics I present, I ran through it. I'm sorry that it was something very short, but I had like 3 or 4 other topics I would have liked to discuss. And luckily, Marcus was so nice and gave me some indication of what I should focus more on. For Always Free, you can always also maybe, if you want any other presentation of any kind, just let me know again. Also, when you want any projects or any reports, any other resource you think that might be useful for you, don't hesitate to contact me and to contact our group. We're always very open to collaboration. Also, when there are any project opportunities, because there's often also some sort of EU African collaboration funds, for example, we're always very open to work on capacity building or professionalization. So yeah, always happy to share, always happy to talk. So that's for me as a little summary and I'm very happy that you all were here. And
no.
It was very, very well, a lot of people here. So it's very nice to see. It is really a nice pickup.
Oh, thank you so much for indulging us and also for extending the invitation. Obviously, based on some of the results that you have presented, we'll package the next series to be more structured and more in-depth. Definitely, we're taking the offer for a next presentation. We just have to look around our calendars and make sure that it is satisfactory for everyone. Prof. Ambe, do you have any concluding remarks before we close the session? Prof.
Thank you,
Ambe?
our Chair. You are the chair, and just to say thank you to Dr. Vos for the wonderful insight. In fact, we thought it worthwhile to get a different perspective so that it begins to shape our mind and reflection. I know what I've indicated about the work that has been done. We cannot lose hope. We can continue just to knock the door and hope that we'll continue to make improvement and contributions. And those that matters from a policy decision making will be able to listen and take the contributions that we are bringing in. And we believe that as we strive to provide this insight and provide data for decision making, we're going to see the kind of change that we want in the future. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you so much, Prof. I know I had to arm twist you. They didn't want to say anything, but I couldn't let you go. I think to everyone, thank you so much for attending today's event and for your active participation, both in terms of the direct questions and also in terms of the comments on chat. We do look forward to your presence in our next event. And to Dr. Vos, I know that today it was your special event, but we will always extend our future invitations, even if it's other speakers who are presenting, so that you get a sense of some of the issues that we are dealing with as an African continent. And like I've already indicated, we will be following up on the offer that you've just made for a future presentation. I think with these words, we would like to call this session over, and goodbye, everyone.
Thank you all.
If you can stop the recording from your side.
Thank you. And thanks all for being here. And Prof. Ambe, please, my greetings for George. Share my greetings.
Okay. Okay, everyone.
Thanks for everything.
Okay, then. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Thanks.